sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, on a Monday. So much to unpack, and we got Monday Night Football here for you guys tonight. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. We got great lists of guests here tonight. Travis Reed, former Collegiate center, is going to be joining us, talking a lot about the NBA, college hoops, and also Olympic basketball. It's going to be a lot of fun. And the best treat, former national champion for Alabama and 9 years in the NFL, former safety George Teague is going to be joining us here up and onto the program, talking college football, talking the NFL. So much to unpack, and we've had some really interesting yet really good games all throughout this weekend. And it's crazy. So I'll start with this. So first of all, what I watched last night between Chicago and the Niners is I thought that was a great game on both sides. But San Francisco continues to show everybody why that Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh, Brock Purdy, and Christian McCaffrey is what makes up this team. And at the same time, we all thought without George Kittle, it may not have looked this good. And at the same time, I thought, to me personally, I didn't think that without George Kittle that it would have played a factor into San Francisco playing this good. And they did. And on top of it, they got the win. This is exactly what you wanted if you're San Francisco. And on top of everything else, San Francisco now controls up their destiny because they're playing for the number one seed in the NFC. Because after watching the Rams lose to Seattle, Seattle looks like they could be a team to win the number one seed, but they have to play them too. And that's the last game of the season. And so lots of storylines in the NFL. Lots of different changes with as far as playoff seeding, playoff formats. It's going to be doggone crazy. But this is what the NFL lives for. And honestly, when I watch the game, if you're Chicago, don't hang your head. It was a competitive game. Yeah, the defenses did not really look as good on both ends, and I get all of it. But don't be disappointed with the way in which that result went. Because in my opinion, I think Chicago, that's the best looking offense I think I've seen ever in Chicago's history. And Caleb Williams looked really good. So my takeaway of it is both these teams played competitively, and both these teams know there's something to fight for, and that's the number one seed. So everybody knows it. And what I think is crazy is that you're watching with how this is all kind of coming together and how San Francisco and what started the year off as one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. I didn't think it would be this easy, truthfully, because it's the NFL. It's full of surprises. So don't get caught up on the narrative that this was just an easy year for them, because it wasn't. And on top of everything else, like, I think the way in which I would describe this is that the Niners knew what they were playing for. So that my biggest takeaway is I think Brock Purdy had an amazing game. And finally, because amongst all of that, Brock Purdy was a very good quarterback. And so was Caleb Williams. But San Francisco played a lot of adversity. They played a lot of adversity ball. And good for them. No Fred Warner, no Nick Bosa. And on top of that, now you're playing for the number 1 seed. So I think this game's going to come down to a few things. It'll come down to, it's the fight for the NFC West. And it's also the fight for the number 1 seed. San Francisco, they played with a lot of adversity. And Brock Purdy, by the way, after the first interception he threw, that was a pick 6, he came back with 3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and Christian McCaffrey was running like crazy. So that was an intense game. Again, both defenses didn't even play great. San Francisco's got a lot to play for. Now, a lot of people are asking, is San Francisco this legit? If they get the number 1 seed, I think San Francisco is a team you want to be careful of, especially with how Kyle Shanahan and the rest of that offense, how they've been playing and how they've been overcoming a lot of different adversities all at once in one season is what is the big difference maker. So keep an eye on that. I think San Francisco, we'll see what happens against Seattle. They won last time when the season started, and it was a close game. We know how these division rival matchups will be, but I think Seattle, they got a lot up and on the table that they're playing for as well. So, again, I think it's intensified, but welcome to December and January football. So, all right. Shifting over, let's talk about Philadelphia and Buffalo. I want to start with what happened to the Buffalo Bills. So first and foremost, you're at home, inclement weather, Josh Allen, and the rest of this offense is why I still have concerns of whether or not Buffalo is a for real team. And I get it. Inclement weather, not as great. But here's the thing we cannot end up talking about is we cannot talking about Josh Allen doesn't have weapons. I understand that. Keith Coleman not exactly translating to the type of receiver that we thought he would be. It's a big X factor. But Brandon Cooks, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, and Dawson Knox, like you still utilize Dawson Knox every single way that you can, but it's running the football. When you know that you're in inclement weather and you're at home, why aren't you running the football? Why aren't you improvising and getting your team down up and into the field? This is what's going to be a hard time believing in Buffalo, because at the end of the day, Josh Allen has to be able to take matters into his own hands. Every time when I think about this, this is why Sean McDermott, his seat would be heating up, because you're playing against a Philadelphia team that we know defensively, they're physical, but Jalen Hurts didn't even have a great game either. So you got to understand something. Welcome to December and January football, where it gets harder, it gets much more physical, and all these games matter. And Buffalo, this is their chance to do it. No Patrick Mahomes, no Joe Burrow, potentially no Lamar Jackson. So you've got to deal with Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, Drake May, and potentially Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson. You got to deal with all those guys. If you cannot end up getting the job done and you don't end up getting to a Super Bowl and potentially winning it, all of the question marks are going to stem to Josh Allen and Sean McDermott. And Sean McDermott, as I've said, is a lot like a modern-day Marty Schottenheimer, where he's so close, can't seem to get it every single year. And on top of it, you think that they would have a really good defense, even though that they held up 13 points against Philadelphia, but you're in inclement weather at home. You know exactly how to play in this. You should be able to figure out your opponent, Because in the end, remember, you were in inclement weather against Cincinnati. That didn't even seem to be a problem the minute that you made second half adjustments. So there's a lot that you really have to consider with Buffalo. Because at this point, there should be no room for excuses. And think about this. You're at home. Jalen Hurts is not playing his best. And then on top of all of that, Philadelphia's offense was so wonky. So why is it that Buffalo could not end up putting their foot on the gas pedal? And that becomes a problem. Because it would be one thing if Philadelphia ended up pointing up 21 plus points on the road. They also know how to play in inclement weather in Philadelphia, but they didn't. Jalen Hurts was struggling. They couldn't even get offense right. All they had to do was play physical football on the defensive end, and that's exactly what they did. I mean, Jalen Carter was picking on them. So I don't understand this with Buffalo. You could run the football efficiently, and if you could fight to go and get first downs, and on top of all of that, defensively, this is the best look that they've been playing almost the entirety of the year. I mean, and the other thing is, too, they ended up going for 2. In my opinion, and I'm not saying that I'm trying to play safe, and I'm not here to say that I am scared to not go for 2. Here's the difference. If you would go for 2 unless your backs were really against the wall, okay? That's one of the biggest things. So to me, I would be okay with Buffalo taking the points because on top of that, Jalen Hurts isn't putting up a lot of numbers in the air, and neither is he scoring a lot of points. That whole Philadelphia offense was having a hard time. And so take the points because, in my opinion, you would have gone into that thing, inclement weather, at home, and overtime, and you would have been fighting for the possession, and then Buffalo would have had a chance to potentially come back and win that game. But that was not the case at all. And Josh Allen, when it came to the throw, you threw that, and you were trying to throw right across his body, right into the middle of the edge zone, and you missed it. And you threw below, you threw away from his hands, and that's where all of that is on Josh Allen with the pressure. The pressure is so high on the Bills and Josh Allen because with no Mahomes and no Joe Burrow and maybe no Lamar Jackson, there is no room for excuses at all. This is potentially a red carpet for the Bills to go and win it. And right now, it's not looking like it's going to be that promising. Like there was a lot of truths that we found out about it. All right. I'll talk a little bit more about that with a lot of other teams right now. As far as playoff games, players that are probably going to end up sitting their starters, seeding purposes, and so much more. Plus, around the corner, Travis Reed is going to be joining us. We're going to talk a lot about college hoops, going to be talking a lot about the NBA, and so much more. And then finally, around the corner, George Teague, former NFL safety, will be joining us as well. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning on in here into the show. And so just to tell you, because we're going to be wrapping 2026. I hope for all of you, you have a lot of New Year's resolutions. I know I've got mine. I want to be in the best fit possible as far as health-wise. And I know a lot of you guys I probably will be seeing up and into the gym, hitting your New Year's resolution goals. I get it. Happens every year. Well, here's a new year that you could start off with. If you love sports and you love your wagers, especially when it comes to player props, check out Payday Fantasy for yourself. Go online, download it on your mobile device through Google Play in the App Store. Payday Fantasy has you covered all season long, even during the playoff time, even during the NBA season. There's so much to check out up on Payday Fantasy for yourself. And Payday Fantasy, your go-to player pick'em app, where all you got to do, first off, you sign up. You get a $5 free entry. That's free $5 when you sign up just by choosing us. And then on top of that, 100% deposit match up to $100 by using the promo code SNAKE when you deposit. That's promo code SNAKE. And you pick the player, you pick the outcome, over and unders, performances, so much more. Pick the outcome, then sit back and watch the game. and watch how you can get paid with Payday Fantasy. Check it out. Start the new year with paydayfantasy.com on your mobile device to Google Play in the App Store. Promo code STAKE for 100% deposit match up of $100 and free $5 entry when you sign up. Payday Fantasy. Get paid with Payday Fantasy.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket, and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
So it was a really, really fun, interesting weekend, all from the Christmas games to Saturday and then into Sunday. And we've got Monday Night Football here tonight. Plus also college football playoffs. I'm excited for both interviews here tonight. Travis Reed and George Teague is going to be joining us around the corner. So here's what's interesting, and I want to start with the one Saturday game, and I'll get to the next one after the interview and the break. So Green Bay and Baltimore, they ended up playing Saturday night. And Baltimore is playing with urgency. And they completely just mollywopped Green Bay like it was nobody's business. And you know what they did, which really ticks everybody off in that building in Baltimore, is they finally ran the football more efficiently and all the rest of it. And people in Baltimore were losing their minds because they're like, why is John Harbaugh not leaning into the strengths as he should? And here's where I will say this. Baltimore all season, they had the worst start that I think I've ever seen. Their defense was not playing up to expectation, and they were suffering a lot of injuries. Lamar Jackson, he has not had the sharpest season this year. And we get all that. We know injuries play a big role. We also know inconsistencies on the coaching staff and all the rest of it. It happens. But what now we know the truth is that Baltimore, they can run the football efficiently if you just give Derrick Henry the ball. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Second half, they ran the football so effective. And this is with Tyler Huntley, the backup quarterback, because Lamar Jackson wasn't ready to roll. So right now is a lot on the line, because now you've got Pittsburgh and you got Baltimore both fighting for the division. And it all comes down to one last game. And Pittsburgh lost to Cleveland. And yet, I thought it was going to happen, but Myles Garrett, he's going to have to save the sack record for the last week of the season. And I thought he would have been able to get it against Pittsburgh, but failed to do so without TJ Watt. So Baltimore right now, I mean, their backs are against the wall. How bad do they really want it? Because you're going to have Josh Allen up and in the playoffs with potentially no Lamar, no Joe Burrow, and no Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. And how good is Lamar Jackson with these injuries? That's the question mark for the last game of the season. And in my opinion, Baltimore has not looked as sharp. The AFC North has not looked as sharp either. And you're probably thinking to yourself, Aaron Rodgers, did he make the right decision going into Pittsburgh? And from the looks of it, with everything crumbling, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and now potentially Baltimore, it looks as though Pittsburgh made the right decision. I thought Pittsburgh would have never made, I didn't think Pittsburgh would have made the playoffs, but they're going to potentially look like that. So my takeaway when I started with this, New England would make the playoffs over Pittsburgh, and we still have an opportunity to see that unfurl. But right now, this is a crunch time. But this is exactly with what January and December football all look like. So I think Baltimore, with the last game on the line, if you're John Harbaugh, and especially when people are calling for your job, along with Eric DeCosta, you should be throwing everything up front. Everything in the front of the line. Otherwise, Baltimore not making the playoffs is not like Baltimore. Okay? It's not like Baltimore. They did not have the great defense to start with. When they traded Odafe Oweh to the Chargers and get Alawi Gilman, they were a much better defense. But then since then, they got exposed on a couple areas, and they kept pulling back the run game. What's the point of paying Derrick Henry if you're not going to utilize him? Because that's what you paid him for, to run the ball. And look at what happened against Green Bay. He was smash-mouthed against them. That's without Micah Parsons, and that's without a couple of players on defense. And they also had Malik Willis, backup quarterback. And I just think with Baltimore, you throw everything up and onto the table because you got nothing else to lose from here. You miss out on the playoffs, everybody is going to be calling for John Harbaugh not to coach there, and Eric DeCosta may be out of a job as a GM, but just know Baltimore is going to be on fire come close to the offseason, and if you think that this last week is not going to be a complete whirlwind, you must be out of your mind, because Pittsburgh right now, Aaron Rodgers wants this team in the playoffs and wants to win a playoff game to get over that funk. And for Baltimore, you lay everything on the line to fight for that division any and every way, what will cost you. Time now for the news.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
The last week of the season is going to be just entertaining. I cannot wait for it. So much to really discuss about it. So after a atrocious offensive performance by the LA Chargers and losing to the Houston Texans, the Chargers have looked forward into their last game against the Denver Broncos on the road, and they have decided to sit Justin Herbert for the game finale, and Trey Lance will end up starting. So Justin Herbert, as we know, has been playing through the left hand injury for quite a while, and Jim Harbaugh, smart enough to make that decision. Winning and health, being healthy, those are our two objectives. And guys that we think, the doctors, the trainers, myself, organization, that have the most bruises and need that time the most, we've decided that's the direction that we are going in. So I think it's a smart move by the Chargers and a smart move by Jim Harbaugh, because we have watched this several times. We've watched this where teams that play these players often get hurt at the worst time. They often don't look the same by the time they go into the playoffs. And right now, the Chargers sit as the 6th seed who could potentially be playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. But if Denver, who's already clinched the AFC West, they won the division for the first time since 2015, They will then end up going down to the 7th seed, depending on it, and they would be facing either New England or Denver. So there's a lot of things that are kind of up and into the middle of the mix as far as the number 1 seed is concerned. But I think the Chargers, they did the right thing with as far as saving their franchise quarterback, especially for the playoffs, because there's a lot that they have to prove. They got back into the playoffs for the first time in a long time that they've gone to back-to-back berths into the playoffs, and this is where Justin Herbert wants to win his first playoff game. So this was the right decision. Sit your key guys, get them prepared for the wild card, because that's initially the time where teams are going to want to get red hot. And if your best benefit is, you remember how Jacksonville, they ended up playing you the last time around when they beat you 35-6. And then you've got New England with a first-year playoff berth with Drake May, and pretty much a couple years out for Mike Vrabel to not be up and into the playoffs, and now is back in it. So that is the big question mark. So I think the Chargers, rest up your key starters, get prepared, and I think that's the best. That's the best thing that you could possibly end up coming up with. All right. So question marks after the Kansas City Chiefs out of the playoffs for the first time in a long time. And question marks around about Andy Reid and the timetable for Patrick Mahomes. Well, rest assured, Chiefs fans, Andy Reid says that he plans to return as the Chiefs coach next season. So what he mentioned as he told Kansas City reporters, I think I'm coming back, right? If they'll have me back, I'll come back. You never know in this business. That's a tough one, but I plan on it. Yeah. So Andy Reid, of course, 6-10 as Kansas City prepares for its season finale against the Las Vegas Raiders, who potentially will be the number 1 overall draft pick in this year's draft. And I got to be honest with you, Kansas City, that this roster looked old. It's not quite the same as it was. And a lot of times, like I said, I think they just got spoiled with just how Patrick Mahomes, how everything aligned itself, and it is what it is. This happens all the time. So Kansas City, just because they took a step back and because they're kind of taking a year off from here, that's fine. And we said it all the time, is it's hard to constantly draft at the bottom and just continuously be aggressive and have winning, just basically having winning years, when you know that a lot of the talents in the entire draft class, it's difficult. And Kansas City, they've been able to manage through it the best way they possibly could. And so more kudos to them. But they're dealing with a lot of changes, moving from Kansas City, Missouri to Kansas City, Kansas. And I think with the way that this looks and the way that this is going to prepare itself, it's going to be interesting. So I think this is going to be a year in which Kansas City really has to take a long look at the roster, make some roster changes, and then figure things out the closer that we get to it. All right. That's going to do it for the news.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the hot press.
So I wanted to talk about, this was a really, really crazy weekend. And I know a lot of people were talking about, the referee play from all corners and all sides. I understand. And I also understand that when you're in this position and you're basically in a position to where you're trying to play your absolute best. Unfortunately, you have to be able to face those adversities. I've told you before, look at Buffalo when Philadelphia was not scoring that many points. at home, inclement weather, and you weren't even running the football efficiently. And that is a problem. Okay. And the Chargers were dealing with O-line issues since Joe Alt went down. I mean, they already lost Rashawn Slater, but the minute that Joe Alt was down, it was all downhill. But in the 4-game win streak, they had Jamari Salyer, and he was doing it the absolute best that he possibly could. So here's the thing. I know everybody was reacting to, and I myself, I mean, I was up and at one of the local spots here up in Denver and watching that game against Houston. There was a lot of things that went wrong. First of all, you already had C.J. Stroud dropping 2 touchdowns that quickly. And then ultimately, you then come back on defense because the defense ended up playing very, very well. Offensively, that was atrocious. And I don't even know what to expect and what even to make of that. But Justin Herbert, we know, has a lot of pressure of his own, and a lot of people do not trust the Chargers whatsoever. They call him frauds. They call him this. They call him that. And he's overrated again. Still can't end up beating the big-time physical team. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to defend the Chargers here for a second. Because second half, if you watch that game, they came out pissed off, as they should. And they came up, and the 2 touchdowns that C.J. Stroud ended up throwing, he gave up 2 interceptions after that. So it was pretty much a wash. And the minute that the Chargers defense was holding down Houston, the Chargers had several miscues that went opposite. Number one, the Oronde Gadsden throw that ended up as an interception, which Justin Herbert doesn't even throw a ton of those. And you got to be able to catch that ball. And I know Oronde Gadsden, he thought about it. He understood the entirety of like just the pressures on his shoulders. He understood that as a rookie. Okay. 2, Cameron Dicker, at this point, missing kicks. Not a time to really do that. And I understand it. You're still in the regular season, but you're coming ready to the season finale end. You do not want that happening in the playoffs. Otherwise, people are just going to tear you apart. So that was another miscue. But I felt like this. I think Justin Herbert has proved to a lot of people that he is a gamer and he's a warrior and he throws everything on the line, including his left hand. Like, you realize that? And at the same time, Justin Herbert wants to do any and everything possible to win games. And I mean, since Jim Harbaugh has gotten there, the culture, you feel it. It's different. It's not about padding stats. It's not about showing off what you can do. It's about winning the games when they matter. Just because they lost to Houston does not mean that this Chargers team is not motivated. Okay? Injuries, they happen. It's inevitable in this league. It's inevitable in the game. But I promise you this, and my takeaway is Justin Herbert listens to everything on radio, on television, even on podcasts like this. He listens to every part of it and knows what's lingering in the back of his head. Win a playoff game. That's the goal. Winning the division was kind of the nice icing on the cake, right? But it wasn't the sole goal to win the division. The sole goal, and I watched this with Jim Harbaugh. And my big takeaway is Jim Harbaugh, when he took the job, and I watched Jim Harbaugh several times do this. I watched him in college with Stanford being a disruptor he was a disruptor to Pete Carroll When he was in Stanford and Pete Carroll was at USC, look at how many times he was disrupting him in the Pac-12. I watched him be a disruptor again for the second time against Pete Carroll when he was in San Francisco. And then watch him be a disruptor with Michigan going to Ohio State. Jim Harbaugh has a method to his madness that everybody can't seem to understand, but that is the respect, as far as a coach goes, that he does really well. And that's where I give credit. So resting the starters was the right thing to do for the Chargers. You're already in the playoffs. The goal, the real goal for the Chargers, get into the playoffs. The next task, win a playoff game. Because you know how many times people have already said, Herbert is overrated. Herbert can't win a playoff game. He throws too many picks. He does this. He does that. I've been hearing every single narrative for the last 6 years. I'm tired of hearing it now. I think, in my opinion, you could go ahead and pay attention to Jacksonville, and you could pay attention to New England and the Broncos and the Steelers. The Houston Texans are a for real team. They're ferocious. They're physical. They know how to get after the quarterback. But Jim Harbaugh knows exactly what he's doing. And he knows, I rest my starters. I have my star quarterback. I may have a left tackle that I know can defend for now. And all we got to do is run the football efficiently. And I want everybody involved and ready to play, because the playoff game is what matters most. So the NBA has been, it's been an exciting start thus far. Now, I mean, the Spurs, Victor Wembanyama, OKC right now, there's question marks. Denver's been playing really good. I even got a chance to watch that game against them and the Magic. And so joining us talking a little more about that, and also with college hoops, because we know the tournament, we love it every time when the new year starts and we get right up and into March. And so joining us, talking a lot about it, former Collegiate center and also playing overseas for a long time, 10 years in the leagues. Joining us, Travis Reed joins us. I want to start here with number one is we got the college football playoff. So my big thing is we watch March Madness every year in March. And I love that time of year because the tournament starts exactly on the day my birthday is, March 19th. And then it's free for all 64 teams. So my big takeaway was, I'm trying to correlate this with college football and going into this tournament, is we watched 12 teams get put in here. And everybody reacted of Notre Dame, they're out, they backed out the bowl. And in comes Tulane and James Madison. I heard of a great point in which in college football, you had the 8 best teams, and then the 4 teams or whomever fights for it. When you look at college basketball in the March Madness, it's like you kind of have, give or take, 18 teams at least. And then the rest of them, all throughout the 64 of the bracket, are teams that are either small market, small tier programs, or programs that are kind of in the middle of the pack. And then your 18 teams who you know are prime, they're big tier, like your Mark Few's, your Dan Hurley's. So when we talk about this, because I like stories, I don't love them, but I also know when you get the big brands out there, it's what makes the tournament exciting altogether. So my takeaway is, and the question to it is, I don't think college, honestly, in athletics, is in the happy business. You're not in a business to make everybody happy. But all you know is you got all those big programs, and as long as it makes it exciting and it's more like grinding your teeth in every single possession, that's what makes it so exciting of the tournament. So what do you make of it, and how does that, what we're seeing right now in the playoff, kind of correlate to similarly what college basketball has been going through with for a very long time?
Well, yeah, I would say, with college basketball, it's been going on with that forever. It's 68 teams now, and people still complain. And so usually what happens in college basketball is a similar situation in what happened in Notre Dame, where say the 5th best team in the Big Ten or 6th best team in the Big Ten doesn't get in and then this mid-major school that has a tremendous record, who's like 28-4, they get in over the sixth best team who was like 19-14. And they're like, well, they played in the Big Ten, so they should get in over this mid-major school that's like 28-2 that really have, only playing mid-majors and maybe play one or two big teams. So, for Notre Dame, all they have to do, to be honest, and this is particular for Notre Dame, is join the ACC and they'll get in, but they don't really have a case this year because they played three good teams and they lost to two of them. And one of those teams, happened to be Miami. So I don't think that they really had a case. They would have had a case if SC doesn't lose to Illinois and then SC's in that playoff tier 2. And then they would have had three playoff teams possibly, going to the the tournament. So it's going to be like that. They give James Madison and, they give these kind of schools, Tulane, it's an opportunity to say, like, quote unquote, the little guy is in the dance too. So everybody kind of loves the Cinderella story. But in college football, that never really happens. Even if Tulane or James Madison found a way to beat the teams they played, they would have got smoked the next game, you know. And usually that's how it goes in the NCAA tournament. You might, one of those mid-major schools might beat a team. They might beat another team, but eventually, they're going to lose to a major school. So, for example, there are teams like Butler when they had their coach Stevens that went to the NBA. They made it to the championship, but those are very rare situations. Most schools, like last year, you have Florida, Auburn, Duke, just the big major schools. So, I think situations happen, especially in college, where people might complain, but nobody's in his business to make people happy. They're trying to get the best teams, quote unquote, to play, and also give the Cinderella schools maybe a spot or two. You'd be surprised how many Cinderella schools, go into NCAA tournament for basketball now.
Oh, very much. I mean, if you're lucky enough to make the Elite Eight, one of my biggest things is like you're proving to yourself as a program, like you are competing, like you are making a statement of why the program should be respected this way, because either a coach or either just, important people in the room who are either in the AD, the recruiters, like they know how to find the guys. I mean, hell, could you imagine a small program that just goes and gets Villanova guys and they're physical, they're ready to play, they're driving the basket. Like that's the fun part. So obviously, like, the start of it, I know UCLA right now wasn't a hot start, but it is, we're starting it small and we're eventually building ourselves up. But I'm watching a lot of other programs right now, and Michigan, they're a very physical basketball team. They got really good guys, and the coaching staff there, I've been very impressed with. Arizona, we're seeing right now play their best basketball. UConn and Dan Hurley, they continue to show why they're a powerhouse of a program. Gonzaga. So when I watched last year, because we had the big time programs play competitively, we know the NIL, everybody's had question marks about that and the transfer portal. And I think we're starting to kind of come into fruition where the big boy programs, Duke, North Carolina, and all them, they got the money, they're able to spend it, and they're able to bring in these talented kids, whether recruitment or transfer portal. And it's not to say these smaller programs won't compete, but we know it's going to be a little harder of a journey for them because a lot of these big programs, they know exactly who their reference is. They know exactly how to get the money up front. So what do you make of it and how the start of this season, what we should be expecting by the time we come into the important months of February and March?
Well, so far, like I said, the team that did surprise me is Michigan. I didn't know that Michigan would be as good as they are now. They basically destroyed everybody they played. They destroyed Gonzaga. They beat them by like 40. You rarely see a top 10 team lose by 40 to another top 10 team. Arizona has a lot of talent. Even though they're freshmen, they have a lot of talent. I think UConn's going to be really good. Purdue, I think the Big Ten is going to be probably the best conference in the country. Ironically, they're the best conference in the country in football. So this, Big Ten with Michigan being top number 2, Purdue being top 5, Michigan State, UCLA, it's a gauntlet of a conference to get through. And so this year, I think, if been living under a rock, the freshmen have been sensational. I think, Boozer's son from Duke has been sensational. He'll be the number 2 pick, probably the number 1 pick from BYU. I watched him play, and when you see NBA guys playing college basketball, that's what he is. He's an NBA guy playing college basketball. His game is very mature. He reminds me of a mix of like a Tim Thomas and a Carmelo Anthony because the shots he shoots. And maybe even mixed a little bit of Durant because he shoots a lot of mid-range shots, but he's a sensational player. And, I just, for me, I enjoy basketball, watching it. So when I see these freshmen who are basically NBA ready, I'm like, okay, this year's going to be interesting to see because there are so many dominant teams. And what you said with the NIL, it evens out programs, Yeah. So what that does is like, where maybe 7 or 8 guys will go to one school, they can spread them out a little bit better because this school maybe gives you $3 million instead of 1. Like when's the last time you saw the number 1 player in the country go to BYU?
Yeah.
You don't see that.
That's true.
But I guess, I don't know if it's true. He got offered millions to go to BYU. And that, they're there. And like I said, he's there. So I think with NIL money, which I wish it was there when I was in college, but with NIL money, it evens out the playing field, of like talent because anybody can go, try to go get, you can't stack talent on top of talent.
That's right.
So I think it's a good thing, for college basketball because kids need to get what they're worth, and things like that. So, but just be careful of just not going for the money. Go for the money and the fit.
Yes, absolutely. Because if you got the right coach and you've got the right, chemistry with the guys that they have played around them, that's what's going to be the big big turnaround from there. So shifting a bit to NBA. Obviously we watched last year with the finals where we watched 2 small market teams go at it. Oklahoma City was the victor. So this year, unfortunately, because of the injury to Tyrese Halliburton, we know that's a heartbreaker for Indiana. But at the same time, OKC, they paid up their guys. They're clearly still a team that were on the table. But, however, you watch the Lakers, you got Luka, but the problem is that there's not enough oomph up under this team that we're hoping and expecting, but that doesn't mean it won't happen at some point. You got new ownership. They've changed a lot of things up. They clearly are like the Dodgers where they're investing in Shohei Ohtani. The Lakers are investing in Luka Doncic. This whole thing with LeBron James is like, look, you either are going to work with this or get out of town. Because at this point, we're moving in a different direction, and we want the glory of the Lakers to make a comeback. So at this point, I watched the rest of the NBA, and I was watching the game too with Denver and Orlando. There's some teams right now that I'm loving. Physical basketball is back because I love the hand checks, and I love to just fight for every possession. And at the same time, it's harder for some of the bigs because many of them are either getting the second chance shots and rebounds. Some of them are also shooting threes. And I'm like, it's becoming so much of a guard-centric league that I'm like, you need a bucket and a basket. I used to love watching, you're driving to the basket, you're challenging me, and you're going in and you're destroying defenses in the paint. So when you think of this season, like your takeaway up on this is that there are definitely more physical teams, but there are dangerous teams that have a very good mixture of both. And who you think coming out of this, because I watched some adjustments. Finally, Philadelphia's figured it out. The Knicks, of course, they're interesting, makes basketball interesting. So, like, what do you make of this? Because to me, I love the old school physical, but I also know I love how they're mixing it up where it's not only just guard centric, but there's different styles and ways to score and put points up on the board.
Well, I think that, the big is back, to where for a long time, if you only had a point guard or a wing, you could win a championship with no big.
Yep.
And, that kind of Golden State way is kind of fading out, where you got to shoot 55, 63s and things like that, even though there are still some teams that do that. But like, with Joker, with, Joel Embiid, guys like that, Giannis, you got to have a guy who's a big who can play, I think what Denver has done with Joker. And like I said, they just like, we're going to stay big. We're not going to go small.
Yep.
And pretty much they've created a great team. OKC, like you said, paid everybody. They're super young. They have all the picks. People don't even realize that the Clippers are okay this year. They're doing not good. They're like 8-25 or whatever it is, 9. And OKC has their pick. So OKC can get another lottery pick coming into an already loaded team, which is insane to me. I think, what it is now, it's like you said, it's a little bit more physical basketball, when it comes to the NBA. That's why, you need a guy like a Draymond Green or Dylan Brooks or, guys, Josh Hart, those guys of that kind of nature. In the East, it's wide open because, like you said, of Halliburton being hurt and then not coming back this year. I think the Knicks, obviously Detroit is doing really good right now. Orlando is going to be it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the playoffs when they slow the game down and it gets real physical. I think if the Knicks can stay healthy, they can come out of the East. But, Detroit is going to be a tough matchup for them. And Orlando is going to be a tough matchup for them. So it'll be interesting to see. As far as the Lakers go, yes, they got new ownership, thank God. I thought the way the Buss family ran it was more like a mom and pop shop, and they was never going to win if they was going to be the primary owners. So I think now they're kind of stepping into the new age of basketball with the Dodgers owners. And I think with LeBron, they're not going to win this year just because they don't have enough talent, just period, point blank, Yeah. Then, at best, they're sixth place. They're not better than OKC, not better than San Antonio. They're not better than Houston. They're not better than Minnesota, not better than Denver. So those are 5 right there that will just beat them in the series 4-1, 4-2, no matter what. I think, like they're just kind of riding it out. I remember like in 2018 when the Dodgers went to the World Series and they had like the old guys, Matt Kemp, and all these, all these other old guys from the old regime, and they had to get all those guys out, to get the new guys like Mookie Betts and, and such to become what they are now, which is a dynasty. Now with a Shohei and all the pitching. And so they had to get all those guys, like Yasiel Puig and Matt Kemp and like the old regime guys out. And that's what the Lakers got to do with LeBron. And, kind of get him and Rob Pelinka and all these guys, get the old regime out, get a whole new regime. You base it off of Luka, possibly Austin Reeves, and then you start building around those two to be, compete. in the West because the West is young.
Yeah.
The West is young. I mean, San Antonio is probably a year ahead of schedule how good they are. They're probably going to win 55 or 60 games this year. I didn't think they would be this good, and like they are a nightmare matchup for OKC. I thought OKC was going to win 75 games. But the fact that they're losing, they can't beat San Antonio. San Antonio's the worst matchup for them. They better hope that San Antonio or Denver knock each other out in the playoffs.
Right.
Because either one of them could beat OKC. But yeah, I think this year what I have noticed is that, like I said, the last couple of years really, you take out the one Golden State year, but every team has had a good quality big that's won a championship over the last 6 years, ever since 2020 when the Lakers won it in the bubble. Giannis has won it. Joker has won it. Obviously, when they had, Porzingis won it. Like I said, the only one that's OKC with Chet, last year. I think the only outlier was the Golden State year in 22. So the long story, I just think that it's a little bit more of a big man's game. That's why Minnesota is up there, because they people thought they were insane to give up all that stuff for Gobert. But ever since they got Gobert, they've been going far in the playoffs every single year.
Yeah.
So it's been to the Western Conference Finals a couple times.
Yeah.
So so for me, I think that it's going to be interesting to see this year, especially because the West is so stacked. It's a gauntlet of teams, because it can be, OKC would have to face Houston in the second round and Denver in the West Conference Finals, or they would have to play Denver, Denver, and then in the second round, and then San Antonio, or vice versa. So it's a heck of a, I love the fact that the big man's back, and I love the fact that it's a little bit more physical. You don't have to be 80s and 90s. It doesn't have to be what people getting tackled. I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that. Yeah. But I like this a little bit more physical than seeing everybody shoot 1,000 threes a game. That was terrible basketball. I hated it. I hated watching NBA at that time.
Same here, man. No, I really am excited for this season, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, I'll be tuning more and more in the minute that, the NFL closes up. Because, again, I love this style of basketball. I grew up with this, as a 95 kid, and all the way in the 2000s. I loved this. So it really makes me happy in my heart to know we're getting this back, and they're just grinding it out every single matchup. Appreciate you for coming on by here, Travis. Happy New Year to you and your family, man. I hope 26 gives you great memories, man. I know 25 was kind of pretty, steady for some people. It's a little bit of some hardships, but 26, let it be a gift to everybody of some best wishes up and on it. Appreciate you for coming on by, man. Take care of yourself, and Happy New Year's to you, my friend.
Thank you. Same to you.
Absolutely. All right. I'm excited for this next guest, and he also has his takes, and I'd love to hear his take on the college football playoff, because we know Alabama and Indiana, it's going to be a lot of fun. So joining us, former NFL pro, 9 years in the league, joining us here, George Teague here on All right, George. Well, you know what? It's got to feel good for them Bama boys, because the fact of, number one, they got the job done against Oklahoma. Now they got to go and play Indiana and potentially number one overall pick in Fernando Mendoza. So let's start with a couple things. Number one is how the college football platform, how it started up, because we talked about it earlier with the James Madison and Tulane thing, Notre Dame. I mean, look, the college football is not in the happy business. You can't make everybody happy. The only thing you can do is make it competent enough where you've got the 8 best teams in the playoff, and the rest of them, I compare it like this. It's an invitation to the Met Gala. You get a free cocktail or a free drink of wine, and you're standing there and talking with the biggest businessmen, entrepreneurs that you got. And that's all these big programs. So was it kind of right for the college football committee to put this together? I mean, Tulane and James Madison, it is what it is. They got to fix that with the group of 5. But did they kind of get this right? Because honestly, Notre Dame had a chance to win one of those 2 games, and they lost both of them, one of them including Miami.
Well, yeah. Now your viewers are going to say I'm being a homer because Alabama got in. And then the Notre Dame folk would say that they're supposed to be in instead of Alabama.
Yeah.
I think what the committee has to do a better job of earlier, I think, is how they're actually coming up with this ranking, because it does come a little bit weird, suspicious, or whatever when all of a sudden, Miami is ranked way, way down, far away from Notre Dame. Then all of a sudden they get flipped, and neither one of them played a game. So I believe they got it right. I'm going to say that. I think their deal was right on how they got to it. It just looks kind of weird and fishy, when you got teams that are being moved around when they hadn't even played a game. So it devalues championship games. It devalues the bowl games. That's a whole other topic. But, to a bigger point on what you were saying, I think that I don't like the whole. I like your analogy of, hey, find the 8. I think we were told in the beginning, hey, we're going to find the 12 best. So then guys like me going, well, you didn't find the 12 best. You slid in these other guys. So I just want to be clarity. What are we trying to do? Are we trying to find the 12 best, which might include the group of 5 or not? Or are we just trying to find who some committee says are the 12 best teams in the country? Because if that's the case, then JMU probably shouldn't have been in there, or Tulane for that matter. So I just want a little clarity, man. That's all I'm asking for. Just tell me what we're really trying to do, and then I can get on board. I just don't. It's not like basketball. I got to hear what you're saying with the analogies. Maybe you can have some Cinderella teams that come and knock somebody off. That doesn't really happen in football too much, too often. You got. I mean, what's the chances of some of these guys beating them? I've heard other players. I love that I've heard from the group of 5 players saying, dude, we can't play with them dudes. No matter how good we are, we don't have the depth. We don't have the stack, the people that can do that. I remember my son, he played at Drake University, and they wanted to go. Some team, not Alabama, but somebody called him and wanted to give him, millions of dollars to come play. And all the players are like, what? Why are we going to go play that guy? I know we're going to get some money, but why am I going to go out here and get hurt?
Right.
For that. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. And I'm all about, being in the clarity business, because in the end, I mean, they started this because of obviously like teams that got snubbed out, the whole Florida State thing, and then, the rest of it. I mean, last year, like, think about it. We didn't have Alabama, and rightfully so, because Alabama didn't even play their best last year. Right. And so it's like, what's the deal? You can't make everybody happy in this. And now the best part I like what they adjust was it's the 4 best teams, not the conference bid. Like when you saw Boise State and Arizona State, they go into the top 4. I'm like, me personally, they're not a top 4 best team.
That's
like,
right.
You're going to tell me a group of 5 that, like, yes, I mean, to give them respect, like, they play competitively, but they're not up there in the class of Alabama or Georgia and any of them. Like, that would just be too much to handle. So I like how they adjusted this, but it's not quite perfect yet. I mean, you give it another year, but I also do believe this is give this college football a CEO, please, for the love of God, because it's like the money's going to get bigger. You got your bigger programs that know how to pull out the paychecks. And then some of the smaller programs, the little guys, like it's hard for them to even compete, but still you got a pipeline. You got locations where you can recruit them. You don't stop recruiting, but you got to find ways in order to finagle it to where you are punched in the map. So I think it's just going to be interesting. But my big takeaway is, I wanted to talk about this, is so Alabama, they're in the playoffs. And of course, everybody's going to react because Alabama's in it. But look, it's still the standard of the SEC. But so they beat Oklahoma. They're now about to play Indiana. And lots of people believe, even though Indiana in the Big Ten with Ohio State and Michigan and Alabama, they're a trench warfare conference. They know how to play physical. They know how to get after it. But Alabama, what I've watched in the last couple of games, they've made adjustments. It's still not pretty, but I love Ty Simpson, and I love what he's been able to do distributing the ball. I think Ryan Williams had a rough day, not drops and all that. They got to fix that. But defensively, they've been able to turn things around. So, outlooking this game here, George, what would you see as far as a team that's usually built for gridiron games in the Big Ten, how Alabama has to instill all that pressure and use that against them?
Yes, and I kind of remember some of these feelings that I had when I played way back when, being told, "Hey, you didn't belong, you shouldn't be there." That's when 1992, when Alabama played the Miami Hurricanes. I think one person picked us to win the game, and I feel like that's kind of where Alabama is now. Hey, they really shouldn't be in there. IU is this, that, and the other. But here's the deal: I think some people are overlooking what strength of schedule actually means when you've had that kind of run, regardless of how unhappy you might have been in some of your games that you didn't play as well as you can. But now I think it's like having scars, right? You're in a big boxing match or you get bleeding or whatever, your skin starts to harden a little bit. And that's what's happening with Bama. And now they're at the point where, hey, they've been battle tested. And now you're telling them you're not good enough. I think that's the wrong type of attitude to put forth to these young kids and these coaches, because Kellen DeBoer has something to prove. Forget the guys. He's got something to prove. You think he's not coaching his ass off right now and get with those coaches? Womack, you just start talking about the defense getting better. I remember everybody in the Alabama community last year saying how bad of a hire he was. We couldn't stop the run. We couldn't do this. Not enough pressure. What's up with this 3-man front? Now, all of a sudden, he's beating some big schools, some competitive teams, and he's getting more pressure, and you get 5 sacks or whatever in the second half of the Oklahoma game. He's figuring things out. And so you got all these people here that are just backs against the wall, man. When you poke a bear like that, I think it just makes for a better game than most would think about. And so I just wondering if it will stop once Alabama beats the Hoosiers, sends them back to the basketball arena. You had a basketball player, send them back on over there to the basketball arena and tell you ain't really ready for this yet. You have a couple good years or whatever, but the legacy ain't there. So anyway, you're going to get me started talking all kind of trash.
Hey, you know what, though? I absolutely love it. That's the tribalness of college football. You know what I mean? Hey, and they got a familiar guy who's talking a lot of that stuff, and he's just building up a basketball program that's finally finding relevancy in themselves. So that's going to be a fun game to watch. I do want to shift to the NFL. So I wanted to shift to one team. I watched them, and I talked about this earlier. I watched the Saturday game, and Green Bay was without Jordan Love, Micah Parsons. And this team right now, it's failing to truthfully find consistent identity. And I understand it all. I mean, Malik Willis, though, however, that kid is going to get some calls. He's going to get a contract somewhere, even if you try to keep him there in Green Bay. But this team doesn't quite have enough of that physicality like they did when Parsons was there. And I guess, the juice, when that's gone, it is harder to really kind of get back up and build the consistency. But my big takeaway is, Baltimore had something to play for. Like, Baltimore wants to get into the playoff. They don't want to lose out on it against Pittsburgh. But for Green Bay, the last couple of years, they either missed the playoff or they edged it and got into the 7th seed. So a lot of question marks are, this team is still young. Matt LaFleur, is he even the guy? Like, what do you make of Green Bay? Because to me, I think it's hard for them to find the identity, but it's not to say this team won't bounce back and find that rhythm, even if it means you got to find that up next year.
Well, with Green Bay, and I love Green Bay for my days that I used to play there. as well. Spent 3 years there, got a lot of friends and things up there. And here's what I got to say about that where you're at now, when people say, well, one guy doesn't make a difference. Well, that's not true. One guy does make a difference.
Yep.
Jordan Love is very good, but what Aaron Rodgers was able to do with the receiving core that he had, meaning not the big name guys, is different than what Jordan Love could do or not do with those same type of guys that you're trying to draft. So your drafting principles may have to change a little bit by the way that you who your quarterback is. Michael Parsons is definitely a big loss, just from a pass rush perspective and all that kind of stuff. Now they're good. I mean, they got a very good defense. But it's different when a generational guy is not on the field at all. So when you take away two guys like that, yes, Malik came in, man, he had a heck of a game. He's running around, he's doing this stuff, but you know what? It catches up to you later on too. I'm talking about for a player. You see these guys, he's a rookie or whatever, or not many games, but you don't have any tape to prepare for him. Now all of a sudden you start getting film and he starts looking different 3-4 games down the road.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think they're going to slide. I don't think that they're almost a little Detroit-ish. They're a good football team. I think the Bears have passed them up at this point. The Vikings have already fell off. So, that leaves them. And they're just not to the caliber I think they need to be all the way around. They're going to have to find some good receivers that are going to fit what Jordan Love is trying to do.
I agree. I mean, it takes growing pains, to kind of get through and to finally find that niche that they need to. So it'll be interesting to watch, especially even with how insane the playoffs have literally looked like on the bracket. So, yeah, it's crazy. Final question here, talking about them Dallas Cowboys. So obviously not in the playoff contention. And obviously it is what it is. However, Jerry Jones and company, I mean, they've really got to think about this with their future very carefully because, first of all, you go up and get a bunch of top round picks, okay, and you have an opportunity to fix up your defense because they got Quinnen Williams and they get Logan Wilson. And the question mark right now is the secondary. And, I mean, that is one they really have to address. But, George, this has been a fun offense. And I said from the beginning, when they got George Pickens, he was going to have a semi-Cortland Sutton season where I get over 1,000 receiving yards. I get about 75 to 80 catches and get at least 7+ scores. And he's done just that. But it's going to be hard to convince to keep him in the star because we know Dallas love to play their stars. But you're thinking of one, you're paying Dak, you're paying a bunch of guys, CeeDee Lamb. So there's going to be an awful lot of question marks, but it's very critique stuff that they really have to come to fruition with. When you go into the draft, you got to fix up that defense. You also got to develop up more of that run game. I mean, Javonte Williams has had a very good year, but you got to build consistency off of that. What's the outlook for the Dallas Cowboys? And is that something that we all know the big man in that chair really has to get this right for the next 2 years that's going to be right up in front of them?
Yeah, you're right. And I don't think he's going to get it right. Now, he's my buddy. I still work over there, do some media stuff with him and all this kind of stuff. But Jerry Jones, man, he's not going to do what people think. You would think already Pickens is already supposed to be signed, offered something. You're going to let him get all the way through this year, going to be in the top 3 wide receivers of the year. You think he's not going to ask for more money than you? Come on, man. Go ahead and get this dude for cheap before it's too late. And Dak's going to be in there probably begging him like, hey, man, we got something good here now. Jerry, it's the spectacle. We need to start believing Jerry for what he says he is. The story, the headlines. He wants to, this is going to be a holdout. He's going to tag Pickens probably or something and then have this draw out all the way into camp so we can talk about the Cowboys all the way to September before the first kickoff. That's just right. What he does. So, no, he messes those things up, and then players get mad, and then all of a sudden they want to get traded. They're laying down like Michael Parsons on the table, like, oh, God, can I get out of here? That kind of thing. So I hate that. I hate that for our squad because I really wish we could just go ahead and be happy all the way through offseason, just knowing like, man, we really got a chance, not some made up kind of stuff. 1 point for you because I'm a DB and you started talking about the secondary, bro. Eberflus did some weird things with our secondary this year.
Yeah.
I don't like to talk about coaches because I coach and all this kind of stuff, but there's a lot of leverage things when you talk about guys. You got Bland. He's a man guy. Likes to look at the ball.
Agreed.
Diggs is a man guy, but he doesn't necessarily like to look at the ball. But you got to get these guys in the best positions that you can. You got a fierce headhunter in Donovan Wilson. You got a different makeup here, but that is kind of a man-built corner team.
Yeah.
Makes me think of when I played with Deion Sanders, right? And Kevin Smith. They were very different, but I, as a safety, knew what their strengths and weaknesses were, and we talked about it so we could figure out how to mesh these things. I don't know if any of that's happening. It seemed like we got 11 guys playing for themselves.
Yeah.
So who knows what they're going to do with the defensive coordinator, but I'll tell you what, ranked last in defense or 31st, whatever they are, is way down there. It doesn't bode well for people, contracts and for coaching staffs.
Oh man, if they, I've heard a lot of the buzzes about Matt Eberflus, and honestly, they're ready for him to go and get a guy that we know sets up the schemes well, very creative, and at the same time accumulates to the guy's strengths, the guys that they know this is what you're good at, and we can set up guys that we know that can help to accumulate to fix up the problems that we know Dallas has been dealing with. Because to me, George, it's like this is a fun offense. I'd hate for that to go away because the defense isn't up and on the same page yet. So that's my part is, and we know it's a pendulum swing in the NFL. You're going to get one or the other. It's hard to make a perfect balance, but if you make it competent enough, that's where a lot of those gritty teams end up in the position to go into the playoffs. So should be interesting of the offseason, but I cannot wait for it. And we'll see what that guy, Jerry Jones, has to say for himself. Appreciate you for coming on by here, George. Happy New Year to you and your family. And I love your show, Teague's Takes, guys. If you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, check out his show, Teague's Take. He's got a lot of great takes, just like what we do here up and on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Enjoy it. And listen, go Roll Tide.
Yes,
it's Indiana. Let's make it happen.
Roll Tide, baby.
Take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.
Peace.
Absolutely. All righty, folks. Well, appreciate all of you guys for coming on by here tonight. What a great interview lineup we had here tonight. Lots of fun. Appreciate it, everybody, for coming on by here. All righty, folks. We'll see you guys here as we have the New Year's. George Teague for coming on by here up and onto the show. Take care of yourselves. I'm out of here, and I'll be back here for the New Year's Eve edition of the Snake Sports Talk Show Wednesday. And we'll see who we got next coming up as one of our interview guests. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the night.